It's good to have you join us again. This is Close Flow coming to you from NTA2 Lagos Network Center. We should say to you that, it's a brand new decade, or the beginning of a brand new decade, brand new year. Well, some days into the year. So it's a big welcome to everybody as we now look at what the future holds for all of us. The story is that Nigeria should become one of the greatest nations on the face of the earth. The ambition is to make sure that we drive that story to reality. Now, what is the reality? Economically, can we say that Nigeria has actually become one of the most attractive economies, 20 most attractive economies, as per our dream some years ago, set for Vision 2020. This is 2020 here with us. And so how much have we realized some of those goals or those dreams or those ideals? Today, we'll be looking at the prospect, the economic prospect for Nigeria, the new year and the new decade. And we have invited into the studio a consummate economist, an accountant, a banker, a trainer, and, an expert entrepreneurial manager. So it is not just going to be a joke to look at the figures. We also want to look at what the figures can do and what the figures should do. Stay with us on the program as we bring to you a distinguished Nigerian who will be speaking to us about what the prospects are for Nigeria in 2020 and what the dangers are, what the risks are, what are the things that we're going to run away from, because also it's an investment expert. Stay with us. We'll be back shortly.
Hey, beautiful. Your eyes, your smile are all begging me to take you home tonight.
Now reading page 3.
Experience unlimited super-fast internet access from Entel 4G. Entel. Live more. Experience unlimited super-fast internet access from Entel 4G. Entel. Live.
Thank you for staying with us. It is still Close Flow, and Ms. Ole are also a delight to let us unravel, to show to you who are distinguished guests, a distinguished Nigerian who will be sharing with us his own perspectives and his own experiences on how or if Nigeria is going to be one of the greatest nations on earth, and what roles all of us are going to be playing in the realization of that set goal. I have with me, the short form of his name is actually quite inspiring. He shares the same, initials with our Lord Jesus the Christ. So when you say JC, I know many of us remember one JC that used to be with us here some years ago. That is John Chukwu. Well, so he's gone, but we have also another JC here with us today. He is not John, as it were. He is Johnson, but he is Johnson Ebu Chukwu, who also therefore shares in that initials of JC with our Lord and with our late friend and brother. Now, Johnson Chukwu, incidentally, is an investment analyst. He is currently the CEO of a Carry Asset Management Company here in Lagos. But besides that, he's also involved in so many other, enterprises. But we will not be looking at all those things. What we are looking at for today will be the state of the Nigerian economy and what the prospects are for 2020 and in this new decade. So it's my pleasure to welcome on your behalf onto Close Flow, Johnson Chukwu. You're welcome to Close Flow.
Thank you for having me, Paula.
Now, quickly, somebody says, a philosopher says, when you don't have the numbers, you might not be able to solve the problems. That knowing the numbers or knowing what the numbers are saying will probably help you in solving the problem. You're an economist, you're also an accountant, you're also a banker, you're also an investment analyst, an investment expert, an investment advisor. So how true would that philosophy be?
Well, it's not wholly true because there are two sides to the coin. You have the quantitative aspect of an issue, which is where you look at the figures. You also have the qualitative aspects, where you look at the concepts, the ideas, the
Brilliant.
emotional issues
Brilliant.
that are involved. If you take any
Only-
issue from the quantitative side, you will miss out the meat of it. You miss out the human angle to it. And then the qualitative side is where you look at the human angle. In taking economic decisions, you look at how will this affect the people. It's not just how will the figures perform. You also look at how will they affect the people. So you must take the two perspectives if you want to discuss economic issues. In fact, if you have to do anything in real life, because even in managing organizations, you have to look at how do we improve on the figures. They have to look at the improvement in the figures, how will they affect the people who work
Lives
here?
of the people, yes.
Yes. Are they going to make them happier? Are they going to be disillusioned? Will it worsen their health conditions, or will it improve their happiness? So it's several factors you have to look at, both aspects of life before you take any conclusive decision.
Okay, that's brilliant, I must say, because I thought we should just follow the train, and that is look at the numbers. Once we get the bottom of the numbers, then we now know what, I mean, like somebody says, it is the economy, stupid. But let's come back to what we are discussing here now. Now, macroeconomic issues, data in Nigeria, for instance, when we are looking at, probably we're looking at, national accounts, we're looking at the national economy, we're looking at the earning power, the income generation and all that. How reliable is that data?
Well, I would say there's a lot of improvement in the reliability of the data coming from on Nigeria's economic metrics.
I like the diplomacy there. You
Yes.
will say there is a lot of improvement.
Yes, because I knew when we started, I knew when the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics was almost non-existent in terms of capacity to generate data. And I know that in the past couple of years, nobody has actually impeached on the integrity of the data coming from them. Granted, some of the data are not being released on time, but in terms of reliability, and when you talk about economic data, some of them are to some extent estimates.
Yes.
So,
yes, because they are not casting concrete.
They're not certainties.
Yes.
So if you ask me, I would say that there's been a lot of improvement where we are coming from to where we are today. Today we have the GDP figures reported a month after the end of a quarter.
Yeah.
You have the inflation figures reported monthly. You have import-export reports. You have the capital importation. Several other basic information on the economy are being produced on a regular basis.
So
we didn't used to have that. So if you look at the economic data on the country, we have a reasonably strong and reliable database today.
Okay, brilliant. I like that also. And now let's come back to now. So because you have said one side of the story is to look at the numbers, the other side is to look at the impact on the people. So how about the micro level? Do we have the same reliable data about the micro level? Inflation, for instance, how bad is it? How good is it? Why the swing, especially during the holidays? And do we have all those things?
Yes, like I mentioned earlier, when you look at the macro, because basically when you look at the general, the macro data, economic data, like inflation. I mean, the inflation figures are reported on just a few months behind the end of each month. So they are reported on a monthly basis. So we can actually reliably say this information on the inflation figures. And if you also look at the inflation figure, it's based on a broad, what you call broad-based assessment of the population distribution. And the National Bureau of Statistics based their own figures on the weighting that 55% of Nigerians live in the rural areas and 45% live in the urban areas.
Yes.
So if you look at the weight, of course, that's an assumption. I'm not sure anybody can say for certainty what exact percentage, because we've not done any census figure for the past 13 years.
Yes.
What population of Nigerians live in the rural areas. But that's based on an assumption. But say that if the assumption is correct, then it then means that the weighting in arriving at the consumer price index is correct, it's accurate. Then they also have carried out a sample about 13 categories of goods and services that form the basis for arriving at the inflation figures. So, like I said, we've seen a lot of improvement. And inflation figures, one could say reasonably well that it mirrors the consumer price index. If you look at those classes of goods and services that I measured.
Yes.
On a general level, one can comfortably say we have reasonable data. like I said, some of them are coming too late, like the unemployment figures. It's low, somewhat delayed, that it's not good. It's not longer a good tool for making decisions. So the data must be timely and must be accurate. But you really can't come out with an accurate figure that's coming too late at the point when you can use it to make decisions. So I think one of the areas I expect the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics to improve on is the timeliness of some of the data they're releasing, like particularly like information on things like inflation figures.
Yes. Okay. Now let's come back
No,
to
sorry, not inflation
figures.
I mean
Consumer price index.
No, unemployment figure.
Okay. Now let's come back to some other contentious issues. Now you have mentioned some of the areas where we think we should have comparative advantage. Yes, economic comparative advantages. Do we have such in our sectors where we can say to ourselves, okay, maybe we have an advantage here in terms of development, in terms of expertise, in terms of banking and finance, for instance. Do we have such sectors identified and developed in Nigeria?
Okay, whether we have identified them comprehensively and are making efforts to develop them is a different thing. But as it relates to whether we have sectors of the economy in global context,
yes,
that Nigeria is positioned to be have
comparatively
comparative advantage. There are a couple of them. Let's look at some of the areas, and where I also say that, look, whether we're making efforts to develop them is a different thing entirely. Take, for instance, the issue of petroleum products, refined petroleum products.
Yes.
Nigeria produced one of the easiest to refine petroleum crude, the Bonnet Light. One of the easiest to refine, one of the most efficient crude class. But we're not refining.
I'm just going to come to that.
So, which I said, look, you have an area of comparative advantage.
But are you
whether
doing
you have
anything?
identified
Yes.
it and you are taking measures to take advantage of it is a different thing entirely. The other areas like cement manufacturing. Today, Nigeria is one of the top cement manufacturing countries in the world, because we identified that and we took measures. We came up with policies that had addressed that
area,
weakness.
yes.
Some in the 70s, we were a major cement importer up to the 80s.
Yes.
Okay, but we had
Then
the
we had
limestone.
cement armada.
Yes, we had the limestones all since the creation of the world in the country.
Yes.
We didn't exploit that, but eventually, when we decided to exploit it, we now approximated that competitive advantage we have. So it's one thing to have the advantage, and another thing to really take measures to identify them and take measures to build on them, yes, and gain the competitive advantage. Areas like, as a country, we're a highly populated country. We are a youthful country.
Yes.
More than 48% of Nigerians are below the age of 20.
Yes.
Okay. So what are we doing to do that? To take advantage of that? That should be a major comparative advantage. But we're not doing that. It's turned out to be a liability because most of them are ill-equipped, poorly educated, do not have jobs, and then a lot of them have turned to be tools in the hands of nefarious agents that are working against the
well-being of the nation.
Country. So, but if we want to take advantage of that, we must have the appropriate educational standard. We must have an inclusive educational system. We must have the appropriate instructional materials, and we must incentivize those who are teaching in schools so that we will build a labor force that we can actually export to the world. But we are not taking advantage of it. I'm just taking of areas where we have.
Yes, I know, which is brilliant. Really, that is what you should do as an economist and an investment.
We're not doing that.
Yes, okay.
Look at issue of palm oil.
Yes.
Palm trees, because we're in the tropical zone.
Yes.
The entire southeast, part of the south, and the entire south, part of the southwest grow palms.
Yes.
But at some point in the 60s, we are the largest palm producing nation in the world. Today, we are
the largest importer.
We import palm produce byproducts. We could actually build an economy that not only produce the raw fruits, but we also refine into different byproducts. Remember that the palm has one of the largest value chain in the world of any commodity in the world. And that factor is cocoa.
Yes.
In the 70s, the western part of the country was a major cocoa exporting country. The economy of the West was built around cocoa.
Yes.
The same soil texture, the same weather environment is still applicable. Today, Ivory Coast is the largest cocoa exporter in the world. Ghana
Overtaking Nigeria.
Ghana is doing better than Nigeria. So we have that competitive advantage, but we are not exploiting it. I can go on and on and on.
In so many other areas.
Cassava.
Yes.
Our climatic condition makes it possible for us to grow cassava almost every part of the country.
And all year round.
All year round. We are still importing starch, and a lot of the byproducts are made from cassava. So it's one thing to have the competitive advantage.
It's another thing to use it.
To recognize and build on it.
Okay, now, now some international bodies, some international development experts have said that there are 8 major causes of economic challenges in Nigeria. Okay, and they identify them to include leadership and corruption. That's number 1 on the list. Then they have over-reliance on oil. Then we have inflation, we have unemployment, then we have instability of government policies, then we have monetary policies, then we have inadequate infrastructures. All these are what the international development experts are listing as the problem militating against any economic, as it were, El Dorado for Nigeria. But you want to agree with some of these, or do you think some of them are actually underrated?
I have a different opinion, and the opinion is very simple. There's only one problem militating against the country's development, both economic and social, and that's leadership. The other factor they mentioned, poor infrastructure,
all will come from
are coming from failure of leadership. If you get the leadership right, you address the issue of corruption. If you get the leadership right, you build infrastructure. If you get the leadership right, you address all the other 7 items they mentioned. One factor. So if we want to solve the problem, let's focus on getting leadership right. Let me tell you, there's actually nothing called culture. Culture is instituted by leadership. These are the values and the non-dos and behaviors of leaders that over time become acculturized, become the way of life of the people. You hear of hip culture.
Yes.
What is hip culture? Hip culture is because people started dancing hip-hop music, dressing in particular weight formats, and it became a culture. It became a subculture.
It becomes like a lifestyle for those.
Thank you. In Singapore, there was nothing called culture. There was nothing until Lee Kuan Yew took over.
Yes.
He defined the culture. He defined the time, people that have to keep the time, they have to define the level of neatness, uncleanness of the environment. Today, go to Kigali in Rwanda. Leadership had defined a new culture. What the current Kagame inherited was a dysfunctional and failed country. One person has instituted a corruption-free environment, has eliminated civil and tribal strife. It was a country where the Hutus and the Tutsis were killing themselves.
Yeah.
One person has created a culture of neatness, orderliness. In Rwanda, you can't go with polythene bag, nylon bags. That's the level of neatness you have there. So today they say in Rwanda they are very neat. In Rwanda they don't come late to work. In Rwanda the Tutsis and the Hutus love themselves. It has become a pattern because over time it has sustained it. What am I saying? That the leadership will define a culture and can also destroy a culture.
Oh, there's a flip side to it.
Yes, because
so if the leadership itself is not competent,
it's bankrupt.
Yes,
if you have
then
leadership,
it's going to reflect.
Yeah, you can destroy the culture, or whatever they call the culture, and then it will institute a new culture, a new way of life. What we've had in the past is that we have had consistently for a very long period leadership that we are not averse to corrupt tendencies, and those who were looking up to them began to see that as a norm. It became normative, and people began to behave in that pattern. Over time, it has permeated the system. If you have a new leader that decides to destroy corruption and live above board, and select the people who live above board, and set example with those who step aside, the country will fall into line. I've seen this country during Obama's second time. The country became so patriotic. Every Nigerian, you go to Abuja, you see people wearing the Nigerian flag. People were no longer looking at you from the south or the east or the west. It happened here. barely less than 12 years ago.
And now,
And today, we are all fighting. You come from the north, you come from the south, you come from the east, you're a Christian, you're a Muslim, you're an animist. It's all about getting leadership right. And every other thing will fall into place.
okay, I like that. I just want us to throw a little bit more light so that people can get some little bit of understanding. Some people define corruption correctly as the misuse of political offices and political and public power for private benefit.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that means we are not. Are we not combat? Is that what we are combating now?
When the government said they have been fighting corruption, like I said, to fight corruption, you have to be a systemic
Approach.
We have to build the institutions and the structures that will make sure that if you are in a public service, one, you are, from the work you do, you earn enough to live comfortably. Because if I were to govern this country, a couple of things you need to do to fight corruption, which I say has to be systemic. If you give people jobs and they're not paid enough to sustain their lives, you are exposing them to unethical behavior. So first of all, people who are employed by government must earn enough wage. And I've always had this approach that if you have to work as in any professional career,
yes,
and you rise to the echelon of your profession,
yes,
you should have earned enough from your legitimate income to build a house and buy new cars whenever need arises. These
Once you
are
have gotten
basic,
to the echelon.
yes, these are basic expectations of a normal person who is working hard.
So when the expectations are not met,
if you have a system, which is what we have now, where people can work all through their years and work for 35 years, and you sum up their gross earnings, and they have risen to the level of directors.
and yet,
And you sum up their gross earnings from the day they started working to the retired director, it's not enough to build a house. Then you have created a window for people to do unethical things. Because these are legitimate expectations. So you must have an incentive system that reward people based on performance and is high enough that people who want to remain within the law and want to live ethically can have decent living. That's number one. That's number one. Two, you now need to create structures that will make sure those who have those opportunities to live decently, that step aside that decency, that they are caught and dealt with.
oh, those who actually we abuse the, okay, so no impunity.
Yes. So if I'm a director and I'm entitled to a car every 4 years, and I have those cars every 4 years, and I'm busy buying other cars and selling other cars, then you can deal with me because you are proving that I have earned unconventional income, that something is
something is coming from somewhere.
But if I want to live a decent life, I should be able to work, have my car. When I retire, I should earn my retirement benefit until I die. And I should live comfortably because I rose to a senior level. And therefore, for those who are junior, they will want to work and aspire to get to that level. That's key.
So that is the culture you're talking about.
Yes, so that's key in fighting corruption. If you don't have that, what you are doing, fighting is a losing battle. Because we are all humans. And the first law in human life is self-preservation. You want to live comfortably, so you want to work hard. So if by working hard, there's no window for you to live comfortably, then you are incentivized to do things that are not unethical. So we must address that. Okay. Then before you now talk of the issue of policy. So you have the social issue, and you have the issue of law enforcement.
I like that. So that is actually seeing the two sides of the coin.
Absolutely.
Now, okay, in your own global interactions and experiences, you studied there in Nigeria, you studied in Spain, you studied in the US, and you also have relationships with some other international organizations. So you are also an investment expert. So what structures? You have mentioned some here now. So you have the social, you have the legal. Now, but what other structures do we need to put in place to see an economy grow? How can we, your businesses are successful. You've managed, you have worked in the bank, you have managed, in spite of the issues with our banking system, you are able to survive. So what structures, what dispositions should we have, both at the level of leadership and the level of followership, those who work with you, for instance?
Okay, let me start by telling us one of my key secrets as a business manager, as a leader, is that I build my business models and on the assumption that the government will have no value contribution.
Zero contribution from government?
That the government will not provide me an environment to thrive. Once you make an assumption,
No, can you say that again, please, for the benefit of our viewers?
Yes, I build my business strategies with the assumption that government will not provide any incentive for my businesses to thrive.
Okay.
Because once you make an assumption that government will provide this, you're likely going to find out that, with my experience, that assumption will collapse on the basis that the government will fail to do the role it's supposed to play. So that's one thing that I tell my staff. When we're doing our planning, I say, look, forget about that government exists. Assume it does not exist. And let's build our business model and take cognizance of everything that we have to, and plan to do everything on our own.
Including building your roads, including generating your...
Yes. In my town, my village people, community celebrated me last December, principally because I helped them do 12 kilometers of their 15-kilometer road. Because I have pursued state governors from 1999 to date, and no state governor did it. So I had to look for other means, other support, other institutional support I could get outside the conventional government. And I had to go to NDDC. And NDDC eventually, because my state falls into the Niger Delta state,
yes.
and NDDC was able to do that job. If I had continued to rely on the state government,
that means that road would have been...
It would never be built.
So that is a model.
Yeah. So that's just to give you a tip of the iceberg. But the basic thing about the Nigerian environment is that if we really need, because it's not everybody, it's not every organization that will build that kind of strategy. It's a very complex strategy. It takes blood from us to run businesses without the basic support you expect. And what are those basic support you expect? In my office here in VI, we have 2 generators. We have inverters. So we assume there won't be power supply. So if we get power, it is what? Bonus. Assuming
it is gravy.
Yes. Assuming you build a model that says, okay, I'm going to have 4-hour power, 4 hours of power supply. And your cost structure is so that 4 hours of power supply will make your cost to come lower. And you don't have it. What happens? Your cost will overshoot your budget. You'll become unprofitable. But we have built a model that says, look, at every point in time, we say, look, these 2 generators will run intermittently at so and so period. Yes. And then late in the evening, when the people are still working, you put on a inverter, and the inverter will run because you don't have so much load.
Yes, on it.
So, yeah, and then throughout the night, the security men on their duty post will use the inverter. That just
so you planned every single step?
Yeah, that's just to give you a tip of how you can build a business model and assume the government doesn't exist.
Now, so how can we translate this model to governance itself? Is that possible? Because now you have zeroed out government. But how do you now translate this model into governance?
Okay, let me give you an example again at the public sector level. Under the President Olusegun Obasanjo and Tinubu era, during the era of conflict, the local government allocations were seized by the federal government.
Yes.
The Tinubu government began to build a business model, an economic model for Lagos State that was self-sufficient. Today, Lagos State has become self-sufficient in terms of revenue generation. So any other state can build that.
Wow.
You understand what I'm saying? Lagos State...
So necessity became the mother of invention.
Yes. But not only became the mother, the then leadership of Lagos State also knew that they can build an economy that relies on internally generated revenue.
Rather than wait for Abuja.
Yes. And some other person could have sat on his palms and wait to resolve the issue with the federal government and then say we are waiting for our arrears. We couldn't do anything. Let me remind you, Fola. At some point, I'm going to use name. Then Colonel Olagunseyi Oyinlola was governor of Lagos State. Lagos was filled with potholes.
Yes.
The A schools. And then there was so much terror coming from armed robbers before the advent of Buba Marwa.
Yes.
The excuse then was that there was no bitumen to patch the roads. Can you remember that?
Yes.
So that became an excuse. And it became acceptable
to everybody.
There was no bitumen to patch the roads. When Buba Marwa came, he patched the roads and he drove away the armed robbers.
All right. So I'm sure you have been part of this conversation. We are going to allow JC to take a break so he can take some water. He has been there expanding our thoughts and our horizons, our thinking, giving us models of how we can shift from where we are today as a nation to where we should be expectedly. So stay with us. We'll be back shortly.
We must dilate the eyes. We look for if they have cataract, look at the back of their eyes. They have glaucoma. We do a full workup for them.
A lot of our government should actually open their eyes, especially southwest of the state.
We're going to be looking deeper than we ever looked in before to ensure that we close all the loopholes.
It manifests as physical symptom.
Every edition is an arresting conversation with distinguished Nigerians from various strata of the society, bearing their minds on how we can realize the Nigeria of our dreams. Join us live on Close Flow, Monday, every week here on NTA2 Lagos Network Center. Close Flow. The conversation is about you.
Thank you for staying with us. It's still Close Flow coming to you from NTA2 Lagos Network Center. And of course, JC Johnson Chukwu is still here with us. Don't forget, you have to be part of this conversation because besides the fact that he has given us models from his own experience that will be great for your own life, we can also translate that to our entire community. We can translate it to our state. We can translate it to the national level. So that's very important. It's very key. And the numbers to call 080-5975-3044, 080-5975-3044, 080-5975-3044. Call us in and ask him questions. I don't know what business you are in. I don't know what where you live and what challenges you have there, but I'm sure from his experiences, we can be able to get one or two, takeaways. Now, let's come back to what you said, just before we took that break. Is it therefore possible for us, so many forecasts about where Nigeria should be? We have looked at the creative industry, for instance. We were saying it's becoming humongous, it's becoming the imperial power on the continent, and yet we are not translating the potentials of that creative economy onto the street. You have spoken about some of our, agricultural, endowment and how we seem to have lost out to other countries on the continent. So what do we need to do as an economist? What should you be? What's the direction for us? Where do you want us to go?
Okay, let me start by making what I would call a take home for those who are watching this program. Economic development is never an accident.
It's never an accident.
Yes. You need to build a structure that will continue to feed on itself for your economy to grow.
Hello, yes. Hello. Mustafa, go on. Can you speak up a bit? We can't hear you yet. Mustafa, are you still there?
Yes, I'm alive. Yes.
Okay, go ahead. Thank you. Go ahead.
Compare this government and the last government. Please, compare the two economies. Which one is more profitable than the two?
Which economy? Which two?
This present government and the last government.
Okay, all right. Jesse, you're on the hot seat.
Well, that's not what we're discussing.
That's not the issue. Thank you. That's
not what we're discussing. We're not doing comparison. We're looking at how do we grow this economy?
Yes.
How do we create opportunities for the teeming population of Nigerians? The basic thing is that government is a continuum. We continue to build on what has happened, taken place in the past. And like they say, the best time to plant the tree was yesterday. The next best time is today. So it will be an effort in futility for us to be dwelling on what has happened in the past. Because you really can't reverse the past. You can't gain back what happened yesterday or what should have happened yesterday. So let's look at what do we need to do today. So for me, I always shy away from focusing on the past. I want to look at how do we move forward. If we dwell on the past, we're just wasting your time. But let's look at what do we need to do as a people, as a country, to grow this economy to among the 20 top economies in the world, to create opportunity for Nigerians to get employed, and to allow everybody to express himself economically and socially. and to realize our full potentials. And it ties to your last question. The first thing I think we need to do as a people is that we need to come up with a clear policy on how we want to position our economy, our country. That seems to be lacking. And when you talk about how you want to position your economy, you have to determine, are we going to be a service-oriented economy, or are we going to be a productive manufacturing economy, a production-oriented economy? You must define that as a nation. So when you say that, take for instance, if I'm to define that, I would say we have to be a manufacturing-based economy with some spices of services.
Yes.
Okay, why do we have to position the economy as a manufacturing or production-based economy? Because we have a large population. If you're a country with a small population, you should be service-oriented because you don't have the labor force. If you're a country with a large population, you need opportunities that will create the employment for people.
So that will absorb that large
population. So once you do that, you say, okay, I want to be a manufacturing economy. Then you have to build every aspect of your social structure to tie into a manufacturing economy.
Wow.
Let's take, for instance, education.
Yes.
You must have an educational curriculum that will train people with technical skills, because those industries will require competencies in technical areas. So you cannot focus on liberal arts. So when you now do that, you have to look at education starting from primary school to the university level that is technically oriented, which is what China did.
Yes.
Then,
which what Mexico is doing,
yes.
which what Brazil is.
Then you look at your infrastructure supply. You must have a network infrastructure, particularly transport, communication, and power infrastructure that tie into a manufacturing hub. One of those things that your power supply, your infrastructure supply must be efficient and cost effective. If they don't just have to be efficient, they have to be cost effective. Otherwise, you're going to be a high cost producer and you will not be competitive.
So all these are part of the considerations you must see that strategically.
Yes.
You have to sit down and plan consciously before you now set out to say, okay, these are the plans for the nation.
That's it. And that's what is lacking, because we have not really sat down to define how the economy position. Once you do that and say, this is the overall position of the economy, and then let's tie it up. You tie it up with your educational policy, your infrastructural policy, your health policy, and your trade policy. Who will you trade with?
Yes.
What kind of tariff are you going to have?
Yes.
As it relates to your trade policy, including your external policy.
External relations.
External relations policy. What kind of relation were you going to have with other foreign countries? Who will you export to? Who will you import from? So these are what is lacking. So what we do is that we take notes of an economic plan and focus on it without seeing how it integrates to the whole.
That's what we have done so far.
Yes, that's what.
Okay, so we must find a way to depart from that. But something else came up, and I think we should look at it now. United Nations says that, or is projecting, that in another 30 years, by 2050, Nigeria's population will be 400 million. Are you frightened?
I'm frightened to the extent that the population is not productive. If you have
the 400 million is not frightening. It is the quality of that 400 million that is disturbing you.
That's the way the threat coming from. Today we have about 200 million.
Yes.
Over 94 million are living in abject poverty. Anybody who lives in abject poverty is being pulled into crime and crime-related activities. So if you have a 400 million population and about 200 million are in abject poverty, then they will eat up the rest of the people who are a bit comfortable. So that's where the concerns are. Today, China is 1.3 billion.
Yes.
India is more than a billion.
It's about 1.1 billion.
Yes. So the populations in those countries are not a threat to them. Because
absolutely?
Yeah, they're not a threat to them. China's population is a productive population. India is growing at more than 6%. So assuming our economy is growing at 9%, our economy used to grow about 7%.
But you're about 2.1% now.
Yes. Assuming our economy is growing at about 7%, 8%, 9%. We will be taking out people out of poverty. Assuming we have the appropriate educational standard,
yes,
we will provide outsourcing services to people outside the country. People will stay here and write programs. They will compete with the best in the world. But if you have a population that is not productive, has no competencies, what you have is a weapon of mass destruction.
Okay, so that's where the threat is. Don't forget again the numbers. You are part of this conversation because that's what Jesse is trying to say to you. You must have a takeaway, to apply not only about the national level, but also even at your personal status. And the numbers to call again, 080-5975-3044. We may have issues, and that's coming from probably, the telephone operators, but that is, you should just be calling in and let us see if we can attend to your calls. Now, something else is, it's important here. You have experienced both the private and public sector, but more of the private sector than public sector. I mean, so we need to borrow your brain. So what do we need to do? Many other clients, they have used the private sector driven initiatives, private sector driven, goals or strategies, to develop the economy, to fast track the economy, to establish the economy, to stabilize the economy. So why has that failed woefully here? Why have we not? We have PPP, but we don't seem to be seeing it work here in Nigeria. Why?
Funny, we don't have a proof of concept in PPP scheme, but that's public-private partnership. That's why
we don't have a what?
Proof of concept.
We don't have a proof.
We don't have a successful public-private partnership arrangement. But let me take it from a broader perspective because I analogy it to the public-private partnership. That the other economies have largely been driven or developed by private sector. Today, in today's world economic structure,
yes,
government management and control of productive facilities are no longer the vogue. Government has proven consistently to be an incompetent producer of goods and services because of the incentive system in the public service different from the incentive system in the public service. Take for instance NTA. If you guys don't collect any advert fee, if you do not
get subvention,
if you don't get anything, the government, you are government employee, they will pay you at the end of the month. In my own organization, if I don't make profit,
you can't pay staff.
I can't pay staff. So the staff are incentivized to go and knock their head on the wall based on our plans and our strategy to generate which is from the work we generate that we earn our salaries. In the public service, it is not the same story. It is not necessarily what we generate. It's a tax they collect from me and you that they use to pay workers. So because of that incentive system, not everybody is motivated to do his best or to make sure we optimize value. So that's the difference, and which is why most countries have realized that it is better you hands off from the productive elements to the private sector because the incentive is different. The private sector must generate productive activities to survive. So that's one thing. So the era of communism has proven to have failed. Russia has dropped communism.
Yes.
Even
China.
China is no longer really a communist economy.
Yes.
It's no longer really a communist economy. So it has proven to have failed. And most economies have moved to a reasonable level of private sector-driven economic policies with some dose of social services.
Yes.
So that's that. But back to the micro element of it, how come that public-private partnership has failed? Because in those instances where we've tried them, we do not have the appropriate legal and commercial framework that will make it difficult for succeeding governments
to change
the basic foundation of what those agreements were entered into. And once you modify that, you completely rubbish whatever arrangement you have put in place.
I see. Now, okay, I don't want us to be to leave here without some encouraging notes for some optimism, for the viewers. This is Felicia Nwosu from Ebutimeta. It says, good day to you guys. Good that you are discussing a topic as sensitive as this. It is apt and necessary, especially at this time. Please, how can small businesses? This is Felicia. I'm sure she's deeply serious about this. How can small businesses that is outside the contribution of government? No, I didn't get that. Okay, I think she's asking a question. How can they survive? So what is the source of paying taxes when government can't support such small businesses, especially people who are just coming out into businesses? What she's talking about is the round of taxes that we're getting. You do one bank transaction, you pay tax. You do POS transaction, you pay tax. So she's saying, and she's not being supported by government. So how will she survive?
Well, it's a tough call for the small and medium scale enterprise, but they can still survive. One of the things I advise my customer that are into small and medium scale enterprise, look for a value segment that, one, it's consumed at regular intervals. So my emphasis is focus on consumer goods or services that are consumed repeatedly. Two, look for low energy intensive sector to focus on. If you go to an energy intensive sector, then you're going to struggle with power supply. Which is why I said build model that is a government does not exist. So one, if you focus on
please, can we start all over again? Not because of Felicia alone, but because of others. Let's start from the top. Okay? So build a model that, as far as I'm concerned, government does not exist.
Yes.
Okay?
Then focus largely on a consumer goods segment where your services or products are repeatedly consumed by the citizens. Two, focus on low energy intensive sector. And three, focus on an area of goods or service where the unit cost is not high because the average income of Nigerians is very low. So you have to focus on those things that can be bought or consumed by the low, by those with low income level, because that's when you can sell to the masses.
Yes.
So if you focus on these three areas, you are likely going to survive irrespective of what the government policies are as a small and medium scale producer.
So you shouldn't allow the incidence of tax to frighten you to the point where you become crippled.
The issue of tax is a burden you have to live with. Today, the government is charging stamp duties for every transaction above 1,000 naira. They are charging you value-added tax even on online payment, online transactions.
Yes.
You can't run away from that. So you have to factor in as part of your costs. Because
that is reality.
That's the reality. You see, if you build a business model as if an existing cost does not exist, then you are likely going to fail. But like I said, focus on those areas that allow you to sell to the mass market, which is produce low-cost goods, focus on sectors that are low energy intensive, and preferably look at consumer goods segment. If you sell white goods in the country, and white goods are heavy-duty items, you realize because the low income level will not allow you to make repeated sales, unlike you have in other countries. And that's why if you're in those areas, you could sell one product today and make 100,000, but nobody buys again for the next
6 months.
Yes. But if you are selling a product that you're making just 1 naira, and you are selling 100,000 units of that product, you're making 100,000. And remember, we're a large populated country.
Yes.
So the only way you can take advantage of a large population is because you are selling to the mass market.
Yes.
Just sell 100,000 units of your product at 1 naira, you are making 100,000. So if consistently you sell and people come to buy from you once every week because it's a consumer good, every week
you are sure of that
100,000 naira.
Okay, so that is for you, Felicia. I hope that is a good takeaway for you. Now we are going to round up very shortly because my producers are saying to me that we have chopped too much time here. I don't know what that is, but I will accept it to be that we are already eating into another program's timing. Now, Vision 2020. We seem to have craftily or nicely or smartly shifted that to Vision 2050.
You know, like I said, we don't really have an overarching economic plan. The Vision 2020 was initiated by the Olusegun Obasanjo government.
Yes.
Immediately he left, the year that government that came succeeded him came up with is he a 7 or 9 point agenda?
Yes, 9-point agenda.
Agenda. Then the Jonathan that succeeded, Goodluck Jonathan administration that succeeded Yar'Adua came up with a whittled, I think it's either 4-point or 5-point agenda. Okay. Then remember that all this agenda had ignored the fact that we had a Vision 2020 that's supposed to position the economy as top 20 economy by 2020. Yes. And then under the Muhammadu Buhari's government, we're now dealing with economic recovery and growth plan.
Yes.
So none of them has made any reference or has been built to tie it to the Vision 2020. So like I said, economic development is never an accident. It doesn't happen by chance. It's not a chance event. It's something we have to work towards. Okay, so we need to again rethink our model of learning. Because again, some of the experts who were hired or were co-opted to come up with all these policies should have been able to say this. Well, it's difficult for me to say whether they said it and they were not listening to, or they didn't say it at all.
I see. Okay, now from your own experience again, in terms of investment and all that. Now, the global development indices, they have placed Nigeria just a step higher than the last or the least or the worst country in the world at 158.
Yeah. You have to look at what's our rating on Human Development Index. You look at quality of education,
yes,
quality of health care, basic social amenities, security. These are basic things that are used to measure the quality of life. And because in all these areas we seem to be deteriorating. We used to say that we have 10 million children out of school children, school aged out of school. We are moved to 13.
Yes.
We used to have about something million people that are in Africa. We are moved to 94, moving towards 100. Okay. We used to have basic health care at rural levels. All those basic health care institutions have all collapsed. So if you look at all the parameters you use to measure Human Development Index, the country seems to be deteriorating. And that is why our ranking is
dropping.
Yeah.
Okay, for your last word, so what are the prospects for Nigeria in 2020 and in the new decade? What are the things that should guide us? Because again, the incidences of depression, the incidences of suicides, the incidences of migration, all these seem to be now the feature of the Nigerian. So what should we be looking at for 2020 and in this new decade?
Well, what I would say to Nigerians is that our potentials are still there. They've not rotten.
Our potentials
are still there. We still have opportunity to start afresh, and we should start today. Like I mentioned earlier, the best time to plant the tree was yesterday. The next best time is today. We still have the capacity to build an economy that will be everywhere in the world, but we must know it is not a chance event. It is not something you say, let us pray. We need to work it out.
All right. Jesse, thank you so very much. I like the way you have closed that. So it's not about prayer and prayer points and calling down whatever. It is for you to sit down.
We need to work it out.
No, but that's just an aside. So why that religiosity? Why is it not working for us?
Because it's based, our religion is still based on what we inherited from our forefathers. If you talk to, I'm a Christian, and when I talk to fellow Christians or even talk to Muslims, you realize that we are still holding on to the mystical belief that God will come down from heaven and help us build a society that is Eldorado. We forget the fact that every country was built by the citizens.
Thank you very much for coming on the show. It's been nice having you with us, and we love you for the opinions you have shared with us. And we expect our viewers to also share that some of the takeaways you have given them, with their friends, with their families, and with everybody in the community, so that we can build the Nigeria of our dream. It is not. It's not by prayer. It's not a prayer point.
Yeah, we need to work it out. We need to fold our sleeves and get to work.
Okay, so fold your sleeves and get to work. So we want to thank you for watching as a beginning of what Close Flow will be showing or sharing with you for the rest of this year. So join us again on this show every Monday on this channel. Thank you for watching, and bye for now.